3 expansions and millions of subscribers later, the World of Warcraft returns to the sites of its origin with Cataclysm, which looks like the biggest game changer yet. Though the level cap increase is only half as large as what's been established by precedent, Cataclysm is front-loaded with more endgame content than any prior WoW expansion. Is this enough to hold your interest some 6 years after the game's launch?
Even fools have uses, though. I keep you around, after all.
Alright, sunshine, time to spill your guts before I spill them for you!
Compared to previous expansions that dealt with distant looming threats to Azeroth, Cataclysm kicks off with a literal bang. In the weeks leading to launch, Deathwing, the big baddie whose mug is on the box, succeeded at sundering the World of Warcraft, to the enormous benefit of players long tired of the game as played in the old world. The shattering event, on top remaking WoW's fundamentals for every paying subscriber, set the tone for the experience the Cataclysm would provide 2 weeks later.
We're at the center of the Maelstrom, the rift between Deepholm and our world.
The 80 to 85 leveling experience comprises 5 new zones, representing WoW quest design at its most accomplished and ambitious. Elements introduced in Wrath of the Lich King, like phasing, cutscenes, and vehicle play, are used to much greater effect in Cataclysm, and the result is a quest experience with sufficient built-in relief from tiresome MMO formulas, and one that successfully frames your character's career in the larger world.
By your hand, this mountain will bloom again.
The MMO genre has long aspired to give players the impression that their presence affects the world, and with its comprehensive use of phasing and cutscenes, Cataclysm comes the closest of any game yet. Even the most jaded WoW players will be surprised at the events that take place in zones like Vajir and Ulduum.
Haunting the wilds unchecked, until we found you.
Novice players hoping to experience the new quest paradigm need look no further than the starting zones for the 2 new Cataclysm races, the Goblins and Worgen. By the time they hit their teens and join the masses on Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms, Goblin and Worgen players will see their races' homelands irreversibly altered by the events of their newbie quest lines. Of course, once they level out of the post-shattering world at 60, it's all downhill till level 80. Though the Northrend experience still holds up, Blizzard needs to give Outland the Cataclysm treatment post-haste.
As I purify these waters, the servants of filth will surely be stirred.
The new dungeons hew a bit closer to tradition, especially when you consider some of Lich King's arguable excesses. There are instances to span the whole of the 80 to 85 experience, and heroic versions of each are available to queue up for when you hit the cap and qualify for the equipment level minimum. Ranging from relatively brief and boss-focused dungeons like Throne of the Tides to lengthy crawls in the Halls of Origination that evoke old-school WoW, the new instances run the gamut. Longtime players will get a kick out of the heroic mode versions of 2 classic dungeons, Dead Mines and Shadowfang Keep, retuned to provide a challenge for level 85 characters. Cataclysm also includes 4 raid scenarios out of the gate, more than any prior WoW expansion. Though the vast majority of players have only begun to gear up for the high-end game, it shouldn't be too surprising that elite guilds are already brutalizing the expansion raids. Powerful as they are, Nefarian and Cho'Gall evidently can't touch the dogged persistence of dedicated raiders. Cataclysm also brings some substantial additions to the PvP game. Tol Barad stands in for Lake Wintergrasp when it comes to persistent world PvP, and it makes some smart changes in regards to how it segregates some of its quest content from the actual battle zone. 2 new battlegrounds provide for more organized shenanigans. Twin Peaks is a more expansive version of Warsong Gulch's Capture the Flag play, and the battle for Gilneas is essentially a tighter 10-player version of Arathi Basin. The implementation of raided battlegrounds means that these 2 new zones will see heavy use, especially by players with a competitive streak who aren't keen on the arena system's smaller skirmishes, yet still covet the high-end PvP booty. Players with a less mercenary edge will likely eat up the new Archaeology secondary skill. It focuses on things that more achievement-oriented players balk at, like gingerly taking in the sights of the world for purposes more illuminating than lucrative. Archaeology ingeniously prevents other players from interfering with your experience by spawning nodes unique to you, but the process is by no means painless. When you consider the sluggish pace of leveling up the skill, as well as the sheer amount of travel it requires, archaeology rivals fishing in terms of its uphill grind. Perseverance through many fruitless digs will eventually turn up rare trinkets, recipes, and bind-on-account epics. But the road to these treasures will be a long one indeed if you don't particularly care for the supplementary lore. More dramatic than any individual class change are the ways the Cataclysm has altered how players conduct the business of dungeon runs. Toward the latter days of Wrath of the Lich King, WoW is at its most permissive and lenient. In heroic dungeon runs, damage-dealing classes could focus more or less entirely on dishing out the big numbers, while healers with abundant mana pools easily compensated for their single-mindedness. Crowd control was only for PvP. If you caught your healers stopping to drink too often, you'd likely poke them with sticks. Cataclysm reintroduces a lot of these long-forgotten intricacies to PvE play, and frankly, the majority of the player base couldn't be more shell-shocked. Long gone are the days of face-rolling heroics. All of a sudden, DPS classes have to reacquaint themselves with their crowd control abilities, abide by kill orders, and remain mindful of their surroundings. With the efficiency of bread-and-butter healing spells reduced overall, and mana pools that are far from infinite, healers can simply no longer compensate for brain-dead play. Tanks, meanwhile, have to actively use their defensive cooldowns, even during routine fights. They're not just for emergencies anymore. The result is a more challenging game overall, one that rewards players who pay attention and learn the wrinkles of their class abilities. It's also a more stressful game at times, especially when you consider just how entitled and impatient pickup groups can be. If you're a healer or a tank who's learning the ropes of the new dungeons, get ready for some thankless work. Conversely, if you're a cocky DPS or oblivious to everything but your damage meter, we hope you enjoy those 40-minute dungeon queues. Things will inevitably get easier as the player base becomes better equipped to deal with the new dungeons, both literally and in terms of experience. But we have a feeling that this level of difficulty represents the new baseline for WoW's dungeon. Set ablaze by the pernicious Deathwing and recast in a scorched silhouette, the ever-evolving realm of Azeroth has undergone its greatest transformation to date. While sometimes uneven in complexity and scope, the overarching changes to the world are nothing short of dramatic. Lands that players have roamed since the game's beta have been reconstituted into fresh and unfamiliar territory, alongside a scattering of entirely new zones bearing a diverse palette of visually appealing motifs. On the tech side, however, Cataclysm still looks very much like the same hardware-lenient MMO from 2004. A few noticeable revisions in the way of improved lighting and water effects add some luster to the game's aging visuals, but it's definitely apparent that the ambition of the game's bold art design is quickly outpacing the series' 6-year-old graphics engine. For all the peaks and valleys of Azeroth's singed soil, it's the music that remains consistently excellent throughout. Memorable themes from the old world reverberate as somber anthems for the Sundering, fully putting you in the mood to unwind and explore the new landscapes of Warcraft. Though 5 new levels are fewer than 10, Cataclysm is nonetheless the most radical game changer the World of Warcraft has seen yet. The underlying game systems have been thoughtfully reconfigured in a host of ways, and nearly every aspect of the game has been supplemented or improved upon. If you're already a fan, then you don't need our recommendation. Chances are you're already well in it. But if you're a lapsed player or a prospective one who's yet to dip your toe, then rest assured that WoW has never been better, from newbie experience to endgame.